Hello, everyone. My name is Edward Jie. I'm with Gao Feng Advisory Company. We are a strategy and management consulting firms with roots in Greater China. Today on this show, I'm very delighted to have a real expert in fintech and also in digital payment. He is Richard Turing. Richard is a best-selling author and also a consultant in fintech, innovation, and artificial intelligence. I've come to know Richard because I ran into his very popular and best-selling book, Cashless, which is not shown on Richard's screen on the upper right-hand corner.
Oh, wrong way. There it is.
Right. For me, it's very, very well known. Richard is, in my view, by far the most premium expert in the area of digital payment, in particular in the topic of our discussion today on central bank digital currency. But Richard, you, in addition to being, the author of best-selling books, you have an illustrious career and history in professional services. Perhaps, Richard, you can introduce us, yourself more to our audience.
Sure. Ed, you were too kind with your introduction. Thank you so much. And a welcome to everyone out there. So why should you believe me? Why does anything that I say matter? And, I only say that half jokingly because we live in a day and age of, quote, influencers. And being an influencer means that you may not have any background whatsoever in finance or anything else. And my career was spent in investment banking. I spent 18 years on a trading floor designing structured products. I was the guy who combined the legal teams, the math team, and the computer team together to design new structured products, which everybody knows in 2008 all exploded. Now, here's the good news. I didn't do mortgages. I worked in exotic derivatives, including earthquake and hurricane bonds, so catastrophic insurance type of bonds. And I also worked in weather derivatives, all kinds of weird stuff. But the thing that's relevant for my book on central bank digital currencies is that they were all in this intersection of money and computers. And that's really where we're going. We're going to this digital world, and like central bank digital currency, or CBDC as I call them or not, like them or not, money's going digital. You can fight about how you want it to go digital, but it's happening all around us. So I was a hardcore banker for years. Oh, and then I did 5 years with IBM, mostly here in China. And again, banking and computers put together. And that's how I made most of my living, figuring out how to make money work on computers.
You live in Shanghai, right, Rich? How long have you been living in Shanghai?
And that's actually a great point, and it's really critical. So in my book, Cashless, I talk about the transformation of China to a cashless society. And the reason why I talk about it is because I lived it. I've been here for 12 years now. And I'll tell this story early on in the discussion, but the first time I had to pay a big security deposit on an apartment in Shanghai, I had to go to the bank and get bricks of 100 RMB notes to spend, to pay for the first month's rent and 2 months of security. And you literally needed a duffel bag. And, that's all gone now, and everything is done on WeChat Pay and Alipay, and we're all cashless. But I witnessed and I lived through that transition where, you'd always have a big block of cash hanging around the house because that was the easiest way. Cash was the easiest way to pay for stuff in 2010.
That's very important because I personally also have been working out from Shanghai and also other parts of China like Beijing and other cities for well over 30 years. And I totally agree with you. Personal experiences count a lot. I think if people just observe China from a long distance without having been to China or just sort of visiting China on short spurts, it's very, very difficult to really get a real appreciation. The fact that you've been living in China for 12 years and you experienced this firsthand, plus your expertise that you already have accumulated before that, that really puts you in the best position to really understand what's going on, I think.
Well, thanks for that. And so let me give you an example of that where it's real. Okay. There are many people who read about WeChat Pay and Alipay in the West. And it's very common for them to say, well, I have a Visa or MasterCard, or I have Google Pay, Apple Pay on my phone, and I tap to pay.
Yeah.
What's the difference? It's the same thing. And it's really hard to explain to somebody who's never seen the Alipay ecosystem or the WeChat ecosystem with insurance, investments, all these different, it's so vast that but they just see, oh, well, it's a payment thing. You guys use QR codes and we use tap. So it's very hard for them to imagine what's going on behind the scenes. And I see that, I read about it and I see commentators and I read the stuff and I say, boy, they've never been to China. It's clear.
So, Rich, today is a good occasion where you really can share with us your, first-hand experience, your expertise. But before we go into the real discussion, let me also show you. I also have a copy of your book, and I've gone through it. I have to claim I don't read every sentence, but I capture the essence of it. I think this is really, really a very powerful book. So, I would recommend anyone who is interested in the topic of digital currency and the rise of China in this, in this area. This is a must read. I would recommend that. Right. So
thank you so much. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. Yeah.
So, since we're talking about CBDC or central bank digital currency, what is that actually, Rich?
Yeah, look, and that's a great, we got to start from the real beginning and then we'll build on it like building blocks, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
So central bank digital currency, or you will hear me say CBDC, okay? Central bank digital currency. The first thing to understand is that it is not cryptocurrency. As we're recording this right now, crypto markets are collapsing around us with Bitcoin yes. touching a 20,000 down, 50% over the last 5 days. So, it's a bloodbath out there. So for those of you who look at cryptocurrency and are saying, I love it, we'll talk about that in a second, but I respect crypto and I take no joy in their market collapse. It's causing people great harm and pain, and I'm sorry for that. But central bank digital currency is a digital version of a dollar, of a renminbi, if you use Chinese renminbi, or Hong Kong dollar, because Hong Kong is looking at it, or a euro. So it's a digital form of money. And now here's the funny part. It owes its existence to cryptocurrency. So the skills and the technology that Bitcoin and other cryptos used were co-opted, borrowed, or some say stolen by central banks to build a new form of money. So if you hate crypto, I understand, but at least give crypto credit for the CBDC world. And if you really love crypto and hate fiat currencies, dollars, whatever, please be sympathetic and understand that money is going to go digital. And we are grateful for crypto's contribution. And I certainly am. I love both worlds. And these are two worlds that don't get along very often.
But what is that actually, CBDC? How do you define that? What is money in digital? What does it mean?
Sure, and that's great. So first thing is, it is a digital currency issued by the central bank, just like your banknotes are issued by, Treasury or through the central bank, whatever, right? Yeah. And what it is a digital form of money. And now I'm going to explain what's called tokenized money, where your money, whether here we go here, it's 100 RMB note, right? We can take that and we can put it into a digital form onto your phone. Okay, now how do we do this? We take the basic technology of cryptocurrency, which means this concept of cryptographic hashing. But what doesn't matter. We cryptographically hide this currency. But the most important thing is it takes away the need for an account. So if I say, let's just imagine we're using WeChat right now, Ed. If I say I'm going to send you 100 RMB on WeChat, I go to my phone, open it up, and I send you the 100 RMB, and it goes. It's great.
Right.
But it has to go through the WeChat, a third-party provider, to pay someone. And it's the same in the West. If you use Apple Pay, you have to use the Apple network. Yep. But now we're going to have the ability to have digital money that lives on your phone. And if I pay you 100 RMB, it is the digital string of 100 RMB going from my phone directly to your phone with no third-party intermediary. And that's the big thing. So we are leaving behind a world that is based on bank accounts. I have a box, I have money in the box, and we put the money in and out, even if it's digital. We leave that world and we're going into a world where the money is actually digital. So when I send it, I can make payment directly. So disruptive technology, because Visa, MasterCard, Apple Pay, WeChat Pay, Alipay, they're not all going to go out of business. We'll talk about that later, but you will fundamentally be able to send money from one party to another without an intermediary. And that's exactly what the Bitcoin revolution was about. They wanted no government involved. We are going to have government, no doubt. But that's a major part, or one of the major benefits of crypto that is being brought to the fiat currency world.
So that's what people say. In your mobile phone or smartphone, you're going to keep a wallet, right? So,
yes.
So literally, there's a wallet of digital money which is embedded in your smartphone. Is that right?
That is 100% correct. So when I open WeChat now and it shows me, oh, I have 100 RMB in my WeChat account, the money is actually in an account in WeChat. It's not on my phone.
Yeah.
But when I actually open my China RMB, digital RMB app, which I have on my phone, and it says I have 100 RMB, that 100 RMB sits on my phone. So big difference in what it means. Both are digital payment, but one is an account-based digital system, and the other is this tokenized, where we take money and turn it into this concept of a digital token, and I can give the token to you. We can trade. It's really it's remarkable technology.
You know, it sounds very good, but you know, aside from the fact that you don't need to go through a third-party bank, third-party account, and you can do the transaction directly, what are the benefits does it provide?
The first thing is okay, so let's very quickly. First thing is immediate payment. So when I pay you, that money is immediate.
Yes.
And that's a big deal, because when we talk about payments in the banking system, they take forever, they're expensive, all the normal problems. So the other one in China in particular, and it's likely, I can't guarantee, but it is likely that most of the world will go for free, meaning that the cost of payment from me to you is zero. In other words, that money just goes. Okay, so free and immediate payment are the big benefits. The next benefits are really, and these are societal benefits now, are financial inclusion. So if you look at China, China has a large unbanked population, and digital money will give them the ability to save digitally and to access financial services digitally without having to put money under your mattress. And I'm not joking. That's a real thing in throughout the developing world, not just China, but throughout Southeast Asia. That's a real issue. So we're bringing financial inclusion. We're getting fast payment. We're getting free payment. We're getting also programmable money, meaning that money can now do more.
Yeah.
Now, this is controversial. Some people are very concerned about this, but we can make money that is, you can give money to a group of people like in China now. China, to stimulate the economy in Shenzhen, they gave a lottery system out and they gave a couple of hundred RMB to people to buy things, and you had to use the money on Meituan, the platform, the e-commerce platform.
Yeah.
And you couldn't put the money in your bank. So if you won this, the money couldn't go to the bank.
Yeah.
Now you say, well, who puts stimulus money in the bank? Well, actually about 20 some odd % of Americans took the thousands of dollars they got for stimulus and they put it directly in the bank, meaning it didn't stimulate much.
Right,
so,
right.
So programmable money, particularly for assistance or aid payments, we want to make sure that people, if they get money from the government to stimulate, that it stimulates, right? We want to make sure it's spent. We also want to make sure it's not spent on alcohol. Or guns in the United States. So, so we limit. So programmable is good and bad. People say, well, I hate programmable money, but actually it already exists, particularly in the US and the EU. But so those are some of the big advances: programmable, financial inclusion, lowering the cost of payments and immediacy of payments. Those are the big ones that you'll read about over and over again.
But I also heard some people criticizing the potential downside that because it's related to the central bank, i.e. the government, therefore you are always under surveillance, right? If you use the CBDC, is that right? Should people be concerned about that?
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about China's digital currency first, and then we'll talk about generally. So let me make it easy for people. Ready?
Right.
You should be concerned about this, but you should not be afraid of this. Okay? Central bank digital currencies are software. You can build good software and you can build bad software.
Yeah.
Now, let me talk about China. The accusation is always the same. China's central bank digital currency, the digital yuan or the digital RMB, is nothing more than spyware or spy software.
Yeah.
And the answer is really funny. The China's central bank digital currency has greater amounts of privacy and anonymity than all of your credit cards or digital payment forms in the West, including Visa and MasterCard. So let me explain. The Chinese digital currency is completely anonymous up to a payment of around $300. So let me pose all listeners the following question. You go to Starbucks and you buy a coffee and you use a Visa or MasterCard or other digital payment mechanism. What guarantee or what expectation of anonymity do you have when you tap or swipe your card? The answer should be none. Zero.
Not much.
Because as soon as you use that digital card, it's got your name on it. Boom. Starbucks knows who bought the coffee.
Yes.
Now, that anonymity may change as it goes through the payment system, but as far as the payment goes directly to the Starbucks, they know who you are, right? So I've got a system in China where anywhere up to $300 roughly, I can use my digital RMB and have complete anonymity. That's better than the Visa MasterCard system. Now, it's also better than WeChat and Alipay. who, like Western credit cards, as soon as you pay, there is no presumption of anonymity. So what's funny is there's not a day that goes by that I don't read really horrible stuff about China's digital RMB, especially, forgive me, coming out of the United States. It's become highly politicized.
Yeah.
And the concept is, oh, it is the worst thing. It is a spy. It's terrible. And the reality is it is anonymous payment up to $300, and nobody in the United States has a digital payment system with $300 worth of anonymity. Now, if you tell me you're anonymous with cash, that's a different world, and I agree. Yes, cash is the most anonymous thing. So we should be concerned about it. And to make it quick and dirty and easy, if you look at the European Digital Euro project and you look at the Digital Dollar project in the US, we're not clear yet the exact design. We don't know. But the hints that we're getting are that both the European Central Bank and the Federal Reserve will likely use versions of central bank digital currency where the central bank has no idea and does not have a database with any of your personal details in it. Therefore, I ask fair-minded listeners, if the Federal Reserve, if the US government or the European government doesn't have this data with your name on it, how do they know who you are? Let me answer that. It's simple. They go to a judge and they get a warrant, and then they can unmask you. Now, that's the same process that we use with credit cards and bank accounts today. So, I get it that people are afraid and may have read terrifying things. Ready? It just isn't true. This is software. We can build privacy in there. It won't be perfect. It won't keep everyone happy, but it will be more private than the credit cards and the digital payment systems that are built on credit cards that you have in the West today.
If the money is digital, right, and it's based on software, therefore it's programmable, and therefore it could actually, in theory, expire, right? So how can I make sure that my money won't be expired by someone else?
Yeah, so that's the big thing. So that's a great question. So we get into money is programmable. The government is going to cancel my money. Ready?
Yeah.
Central bank digital currency does not have superpowers. In the US, in Canada, in Europe, if you are a suspected criminal or evading taxes, the government cancels your bank accounts and your credit cards immediately. They can do that. Now, they have to go to a judge to do that. And that is the same system that we're going to have with central bank digital currency. And if you're unfamiliar with this, you should really just check this out. Canada, during the trucker strike, there was a big trucker strike in Canada a few months back. The Canadian government canceled the actual bank accounts. They didn't cancel, they closed the actual bank accounts for the truckers, and that was a terrible thing. And I'm not saying it's good, but what I'm trying to show you is that you live digital lifestyle today. You've got digital accounts. Your money isn't in a wooden box in the bank. And if the government has the reason to shut you down because you haven't paid taxes, or they suspect you of being a criminal or something else, they go to the court, they get an order by the judge, and they go to the bank hits a button, and you're off the system.
I see.
That's today.
Yeah.
That's not the central bank digital currency world. It's now. And basically, there is no difference from that system to a central bank digital currency system. So I'm sorry, but that's the real truth about programmability and this concept of the government's going to turn my money off. They can do it today.
Right. So in a way, we are already living in that world So, you're saying that there won't be any material change going forward, right?
Absolutely. You are in that world right now. It's just that most people don't think much about it because look, it doesn't happen that often. Yes, if you're in the mob, yes, it does happen. But for most of us, it's a very distant thought. It's a very distant thought.
You also mentioned about Alipay and WeChat Pay, right? And for those of us who live in China, we know the impact of Alipay and WeChat Pay to our daily lives, right? And so everybody is using online payment one way or another in China. Cash is essentially disappear, with the exception of your 100 RMB note that you just showed. Essentially, it's gone. So CBDC and Alipay and WeChat Pay, how would they influence one another going forward?
Yeah, it's very common to hear two things in the West that I'm going to help people get over. The first thing that you'll hear all the time is that China Central Bank built the CBDC, or the digital yuan, in order to punish Alipay and WeChat Pay. And that is objectively not true. And let me give you very simple. Ready? The Digital Currency Research Institute that is behind the digital yuan was founded in the year 2014. January, actually December of 2013, was when both WeChat and Alipay came into existence. So the digital currency, the concept of a digital yuan, goes back all the way to 2014 when WeChat and Alipay started. So please don't think of the digital currency, China's digital yuan, as a means for somehow punishing or destroying. The second thing, the central bank digital currency is going to kill. Ready? Now you insert, when I say kill, now you insert the following words after. Visa, MasterCard, WeChat Pay, Alipay, or, ready, the final one, cryptocurrency.
Crypto, yes.
Central bank digital currency will live peaceably with WeChat and Alipay in China. Live peaceably with Visa and MasterCard in the West. And you know something? People who love crypto hate fiat. So then, one isn't going to eliminate the other. So in China, you've got a very unique situation where WeChat Pay and Alipay have these tremendously large platforms, which are really convenient to use. And they're what we call sticky. People, once they start using them, don't want to leave.
Yes.
So yes, you will be able to use central bank digital currency, or the digital yuan, on WeChat and Alipay. I already can on my Alipay in particular.
Yeah.
So if you're paid because you receive salary in digital yuan, which is starting to happen in a few trial zones, you can pay use Alipay to pay for something. Great, nothing wrong with that. But it is not realistic to think that suddenly all of these people are going to move from WeChat and Alipay to digital yuan. They're all free, they're all immediate, they all work very, very well. So it's not that one is going to kill the other. And Visa and MasterCard in the West, they're not going anywhere. Yes, certain payments. So here's what's going to happen. You will pick the payment depending on what you want it to do.
Yeah.
So if you still want to get points on your Visa and MasterCard, you'll use your card to buy something.
Yeah.
Right? If the retailer says, hey, I'll give you a discount if you pay by digital currency, central bank digital currency, you'll use that.
Yes.
And if you're on WeChat Pay and Alipay, Alipay gives me points.
Yep.
Like, for frequent buyer, frequent flyer kind of stuff, loyalty points. If those mean something to you, you'll stick with Alipay. So you'll use the payment that suits your needs. No, not one is not going to kill the other. But here's the funny thing. Ready? I'm going to specifically for China market.
Right.
When people start receiving salaries
Mm,
in digital yuan,
yeah,
which is going to happen. It's already in
Yeah.
testing.
yeah,
Let me explain. This is a use case. It's a place where WeChat Pay and Alipay were never designed to go. They were
Yeah.
never designed for larger scale, high volume payment.
yeah,
Once that happens, people will have access to even more digital money, meaning they will spend even more digital money through WeChat Pay and Alipay platforms.
yeah, yeah,
So even if it's not on Alipay per se, the sales and other transactions on the platform are going to go through the roof. It's going to be really dramatic, and that's my prediction for that.
wow, wow. That's going to have profound impact on this kind of online payment systems, right? They're going to benefit from transaction as well, from what I see. The other question, obviously, a lot of people are talking these days, is because of what's going on in Europe with Ukraine. There's questions, obviously, there are questions about whether CBDC can evade the sanctions. Would CBDC or China's CBDC would drive the dollarization process? How would the shift system, right, going forward, be continued to sustain? Is still going to be prevalent? Is it going to be marginalized? What's going to happen to CPIS, the Chinese cross-border payment system, that kind of stuff? There's a whole general area that has been arising because of the war in Ukraine. Could you quickly just go through your reading and all that kind of stuff?
Sure. Real quickly. So let's make something very, very clear.
Yeah.
Even the US government has come out, the State Department has come out with a comment that said,
Yeah.
China has not assisted Russia with central bank digital currency. It has not assisted its financial system with the Union Pay credit card system, which some people had speculated China would help Russia after the Visa MasterCard cut off.
Yeah.
And the third thing is something called CIPS, C-I-P-S.
Yes.
And I don't remember the exact China Interbank Payment System, I think. I'm pretty sure. But that is in some ways, a SWIFT alternative. And China has made no significant effort to assist Russia with any of these payment platforms, partially out of fear of sanctions from the US or EU, but it has not. Now, speaking specifically about central bank digital currency, the digital yuan, it is far too new and has not been launched in China yet for full domestic use. So the concept of using the digital currency for helping Russia in any meaningful way is just not there. It's not technologically advanced. But I want every listener to pay attention real closely. This year, both India and Russia are launching their central bank digital currency pilots. When China and India both fully launch central bank digital currency, 37% of the world's population will have access to a central bank digital currency.
Wow.
Now, add Russia in there.
Yeah.
Add Russia, India, and China.
Yeah.
Wait 2 years for these systems to develop, and I think we're going to start to see something very different happen with trade.
Wow.
It's not here yet, but I want everyone to say, I heard it from that guy on Ed's podcast first, because that's really something to watch for our 2 to 3 year out future. India, Russia, and China will all have CBDC, and it's foolish to think that they're not going to use them.
Rich, since you and I are consultants to companies, and in your case, a lot to startups too, but in general to companies. What would be your advice? Let's say if you're talking to the CEO of a large American company who have been doing business in China for a long time, and has been doing very well in China, and China has become one of the largest markets, if not the largest markets in the world. And obviously, the CEO will be concerned about many things. Of course, the market conditions, the supply chain, customers, and all the kind of stuff. My products, my R&D, and so on. But on the issue about CBDC or the general area of China's fintech, how would you advise, a global CEO of a large American companies on how he or she should be thinking about it for himself?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the answer is very, very, very clear. This is good. For any CEO who has China operations, China's central bank digital currency will become legal tender. So there is no way to refuse it. So your company will have to use it. No question about it. So your treasury in China will be using central bank digital currency. Now, what's going to be interesting for your treasury is that central bank digital currency is being used for large-scale payments over 100,000 plus US. So remember I said digital yuan goes places Alipay and WeChat Pay were never designed or never can go. And this is a good example. So what you're going to see is large volume, large scale payments within China made by central bank digital currency, fast, free, cheaper than the existing banking system, all good. Import and export. You must be very aware of what is going to happen with central bank China's digital yuan and customs clearance and digital logistics in and out of China. Let me explain.
Yeah.
China's digital yuan is not just a payment system. And most economists are completely missing this. They talk about, well, I like digital, I like RMB, or I don't like RMB, I don't trust RMB, whatever. What they're missing is that using digital RMB will give you access to a digital customs clearance system, a digital logistics system, so that you will be able to literally watch your products come off the production line, be put into the container, and then you'll watch that container go all the way to the port and go through digital customs channel. And you say, oh, well, that's years away. No, it exists now. Anybody, particularly who's a CAO in Hong Kong, already has access to these blockchain trade systems between mainland and Hong Kong and mainland and Macau. They're real. They operate today, not with digital currency yet, but it's coming. But these blockchain systems are already taking days off custom clearance and about a percentage point off of trade finance transactions done with the major Chinese banks. So don't look at this as, oh, that's far away in the future. No, it's here today. So think of the digital currency in China not just as a way of paying for something. Think of it as this key, this token, this access to China's digital logistics system. It's far more. One final thought. I hear this every day, but it depends on your faith in the RMB. And if you're my age or our age, and you maybe have a little bit of gray hair, learn from the young crypto kids. How much faith do you need to have to use the digital RMB if you can convert to dollars to RMB and pay for something all within 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
This is the digital world. So I laugh because I hear it all the time. Well, using the digital RMB depends on how much faith you have. I can be in and out of digital RMB in a matter of minutes in
Yes.
my dual currency bank account.
Yes.
So it is fundamentally changing how we think about money. And that's the important thing for CEOs to get their head
Rich,
across.
I think you touch upon, in my view, a very, very important point as well, because a lot of global companies today, by definition, they're very concerned about the supply chain security, given what happened in China, and particularly in Shanghai, where you live actually, right? About the pandemic, lockdowns and so on, about, the war in Ukraine, all this stuff. And, people are talking about, okay, can we trust China as the hub of global supply chain? Should we think about this and that and so on? But what you're saying is actually that in fact, despite what's going on with the pandemic, with the war and so on, China is actually taking off in another path, which is digitizing the entire supply chain from end to end. And that capability is I would say, from what you just described, China is really at the cutting edge of that, right? And marry that together, or integrating that together with the CBDC, it makes it a very powerful competitive advantage for China from the supply chain, and also from the standpoint of knowing what's going on in the market in China today, right? Or in the future. And therefore, would you say that actually will become somewhat of at least an important factor of considerations for global CEOs when they think about the global manufacturing footprint, right? Where they should place their manufacturing, i.e. supply chain and that kind of stuff. Because right now, as you know, there's a lot of talk about, let's find a way to go to Vietnam or find a way to go to India and so on, which I think in some sense it makes sense, but in some sense it may not, given what you said. Could you comment on that? What's your view on that?
What China is doing in supply chain is flying under the radar. We talk about supply chain. Yes, it's a big deal now. I get it. Because of the lockdowns, it's on everybody's radar today. But in general, what's been happening in China, nobody, unless you're in the supply chain business, logistics business, nobody cares. China, look, Alibaba is now guaranteeing through its Cainiao operation 3-day shipment to like 30 or 40 countries anywhere on the planet. What they're doing with digital logistics hubs and digital supply chains is mind-blowing, and people are not paying attention. So if you're thinking about, I get it. I get it that maybe for certain companies like Apple, too much of their business may have been concentrated in China market. Got it. I get it if they want to make iPads in India or someplace else. Great. But the supply chains are not going to be able to be replicated. And the advances that are coming on with China's supply chains in the next 2 to 4 years are going to be mind-blowing. And it's just, you're not something that Vietnam or anybody else is going to replicate. And, so I don't see, especially for high-tech, complex manufacturing, garments and clothes were already on their way to Vietnam a long time ago. My friend happens to be in that business. But high-tech stuff, very, very hard to get those supply chains. And you ready? You ain't seen nothing yet is the expression I think that suits the supply chain system in China. And you add digital yuan into that, and it's going to be mind-blowing.
Rich, it's just fantastic insights from you. I know that I've taken a lot of your time. Perhaps I can, jump to, a last question, if you don't mind. Because I sit in Hong Kong. Given the pandemic, I wasn't able to travel back to Shanghai for a little while now. But I've been still doing a lot of cross-border business, Hong Kong, mainland China, and the rest of the world, and so on. And in Hong Kong in particular, there's a lot of interest on the integrating more Hong Kong, and for the matter of Macau, with the the rest of the Greater Bay Area on the other side of the border on the mainland. As you know, Greater Bay Area includes 9 cities in Guangdong province and Hong Kong and Macau. But nonetheless, it's 3 jurisdiction, it's 3 different jurisdictions from the standpoint of administration. And there's a lot of interest from people in Hong Kong to talk about the implication of China's CBDC for Hong Kong finances, or the development of the fintech industry in Hong Kong. What would be your recommendation for Hong Kong business people as well as policymakers in the fintech area on how to leverage the benefits of CBDC for the development of Hong Kong and integration with the Greater Bay Area?
Yeah, look, the first international transfers of China's digital RMB have already taken place, and they're all between Hong Kong and Shenzhen, Greater Bay Area. But so to anybody operating in Hong Kong, look to see what's going on with China's digital RMB. Look to see whether you or a bank or your partner's bank in mainland is doing anything with regard to digital RMB. The concept that you would be able to use digital RMB with these blockchain-based trade systems, trade finance, trade customs systems, it's designed for small and medium-sized enterprises. Look, the big companies, their stuff with many millions of dollars goes no matter what. But many of the SMEs are already taking advantage of these blockchain trade finance platforms, and they are going to increase. So Hong Kong will become the international digital yuan center.
Wow. Yeah.
You won it. You won it from out of Shanghai. You now have the Bank of International Settlement working with Hong Kong Monetary Authority to build the first central bank sponsored CBDC transfer exchange center. And it will mean that you can exchange perhaps someday a digital Hong Kong dollar for somebody else's digital currency within a matter of minutes. And that's all happening in Hong Kong. So you're going to be in the middle of this. Look, it's going to be in the newspapers. It's not going to be like a secret, but when you see it, be an early adopter, experiment with it early, because the people who get this first will have a decided advantage in cost and finance cost, and that may make a really big difference for you and your business.
That's really fantastic, Rich. I would simply close this interview by saying to my audience, anybody who would like to get some real insightful advice on the application of CBDC for your businesses, whether you're a big American company or big European company or an SME from Hong Kong or whatever, please reach out to Rich. I think, Rich, you will let people know how to get hold of you, right? How if people want to get hold of you, Rich, how can they or how should they?
Sure. Thanks so much, Ed. Very simple. To reach out to me, go to richturin.com, richturrin.com. That's my website. I have all my interviews, my podcasts, like this one. You're going to see this one on my on my site, Ed. For my book, please go to Amazon. It's at a bunch of other retailers, but Amazon is the easiest one for me to remember. I'm also on Twitter and on LinkedIn. If you're interested in the topics that I've just talked to Ed about, join in the discussion on LinkedIn. Find me there. It's easy. I post every day, and I talk exactly about the stuff that we just hit today. So LinkedIn, Twitter, my website, and of course, Amazon for my book. And I'd love to hear from you. If you disagree with me, write me. Tell me why you disagree. If you listen to my podcast with Ed, who's such a wonderful host, write me. I'd love to hear from you. Nothing makes me happier than hearing from the happy listeners, and I always write back.
Yeah, fantastic, Rich. I know that you have a huge follower on LinkedIn. I'm sure on Twitter too, but I follow you religiously on LinkedIn. You are fantastic. You are on LinkedIn every day. Your stuff, your posts are not insightful, very substantive. So I would highly recommend anybody who's interested in the topic of crypto, CBDC, cryptocurrency, cash payment, cashless payments, and so on. Do go to visit Rich LinkedIn account as well as Twitter account. Follow him, and so thank you, Rich. Thank you very much. I've taken a lot of your time, but your input has been incredibly insightful and helpful. And I know that many of my clients would appreciate very much your inputs, and it will cause them to think. I know, and we may have a chance to work together.
Thanks, Ed. I very much look forward to that day.
Thank you.